Hey, what's up everybody? This is Joel Adams with Iridesium, and today we are going to be working on explosions in Blender, much like this one that you see right in front of you. In fact, this is the end result of the tutorial you are about to watch, which means you are seeing the future in the past. Today we are going to be creating some super massive explosion smoke simulations in Blender. And honestly, I have to say, not long ago, I did not think this was possible. I was pretty sure that Blender had a smoke simulator that sucked, and that was the way it was going to be, and I would have to use things like fume effects to generate my smoke. Basically, after watching like every tutorial on the net, I figured out how to get this, which honestly looks like it came from something like Houdini or fume effects, and I'm pretty happy with it. Over the years, I have created one explosion after another. Some were really bad, some of them were good enough for VFX in film. And in the end, I think I came up with some results that are pretty good. That is what I am going to be showing you here today, is how to get this extremely large-scale smoke effect that I think is on par with smoke simulators like fume effects and Houdini. So, with that being said, let us jump right in and get started with the tutorial. So, I'm going to start by reloading the startup file, opening a new scene in Blender, and adding in a circle. This circle I will extrude to give it some depth, just so there's geometry for the particle system to emit from. Then, adding a particle system, we get this hideous rain effect. Anyways, I'm going to set both the start and end keyframes to something about 5. That's horrible. Okay, let's try 15 for the end frame. Better. Okay, let's try 10. Okay, that's better. So now I'm going to go ahead and set the emission to like 50, the normal emission under the velocity. And that is definitely way too much. I'll try 20. See how 20 goes. Okay, that's a lot better. Make sure you turn up the random velocity as well. And then I'm going to just check random right here. Okay, I don't think that did anything. Turn up the random a little more, the random velocity. Okay, that's pretty good. So now I'm just going to rotate it, give it sort of an offset rotation that will just add some interest to our explosion, and that looks pretty good. Now object quick effects quick smoke, and that will add our smoke. Now make sure you get the particles exactly right, exactly how you want them at this point. If you mess up the particles, then you've failed the explosion. The particles are really what carries the explosion. Anyways, go ahead and set the emitter to particles so that the flame emits from the particles. Okay, that's pretty good. I'm going to select our domain and hit Alt-S to return it to its original scale. And then just scale it up so that it encompasses the particle explosion. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in a sun lamp so that we can see everything. Hit G to move it up and play this back. Okay, that's looking pretty nice. I'm going to scale up the domain just a little more. Maybe on the Z a little bit. Okay, that's good. So now I'm going to add some subframes to the particles just so that the smoke tracks to the particles and there's no like dotted line. Then I'm going to go ahead and animate the set size of the particles. I'm going to start it at 3 on frame 5 and turn on the initial velocity. I'll set that down a little bit. And then I'll play the animation, and somewhere around 30 I'm going to set it at 0.1. The set size, that is the lowest it can be, and animate it there just so that the particles get smaller as they move out, as if the particles are burning up and emitting less smoke as they move. So that's a little too far. I'm going to move it back to like frame 26 so they burn up faster, and turn the initial velocity down. Now in order to bake this, we're going to have to save it. So just go File, Save As, and name it something that you're going to remember and that you can look up later and find. So then I'm going to grab the particles and just make sure they're set to smoke and flame so that they emit fire as well. Then under the domain, smoke and flame settings, we're going to turn down the speed of the burn so there's more fire. And you should get something like this, and that looks like too much fire. So I'm going to turn the speed of the reaction up to like 0.6. And then I'm just going to go ahead and turn the temperature difference all the way off. And now we're going to go ahead and add in a, force turbulence. And this is just going to add the bubbles to the explosion. I'm going to go ahead and set the strength to 8. We'll try 8, or we'll try 12. And then I'm going to set the size to 0.8. The bigger the explosion, the smaller you want the size to be. Then I'm going to animate it on the Z or Z axis, depending on where you're from, just so that it moves up steadily. And then I'm going to go to the graph editor. Just make sure you set your handle type to vector so that it moves linearly. And then make sure you move the turbulence field back to your main layer so that you can, so that it actually ends up affecting the smoke. And I'm going to animate it, pull it down a little bit so it moves a little faster. So that looks good. Now we're going to work on the main blast that's in the middle of the sort of shock wave. So I'm going to add in a mesh ecosphere, and we're going to start working on particles for this. Just add a new particle system, and of course you will get that same ugly rain. Go ahead and set the start keyframe to 5 and end keyframe to 10, just like on the other one. And then I'll go to the velocity, set it to something big like 50. Or we'll try 100 maybe. Okay, that's way too much. Let's try 20. Okay, that's better. Make sure you turn up the random as well so that it's not like a firework. Okay, we'll try 30 for the velocity. Okay, so now I'm just going to I'm going to add smoke, change it to flow. We'll go ahead and set the emission source to be particles, select the particle system. We've got initial velocity on, it's a little too high. Off screen, I turned up the amount of particles way too high. I think I have it set at 100,000. Then I'm going to go ahead and animate this smoke, set it down to 0.1, and animate it at frame 18. And then I'm going to move it back, set it to something like 2 maybe, and animate it there as well. Okay, that looks pretty bad, and Blender is extremely slow. Let's see, I'm going to animate it back a little ways. We'll set it at 11. We'll just so that the particles again burn up faster. Then I'm going to turn our particle amount to 10,000 particles. And that is automatically way better, faster, and that looks right. Okay, then just make sure you set the lifetime down to something like 5, the lifetime of the particles, so that they die off quickly and don't, stay emitting forever. I'm going to turn initial velocity back on, try 0.1. And okay, it's not enough. Let's try 0.5. That's a lot better. Okay, so I'm going to turn the resolution up to 64, save it, and bake it. Alright, here we are back. The bake is finished. Here's the animation. It's playing fast. The viewport is responsive, and it looks pretty good. It looks low resolution. But anyways, we'll work on the materials for now. So first I'm going to set up the camera. Whoa, okay. Let's try changing it to square dimensions. I'm going to go 1024 by 1024. And then I'm just going to pick an angle to view this explosion from. Pick something that you can really see the shape of the explosion and the forms come out, so that you can get an idea of what your explosion actually feels like and looks like in 3D. You can double tap R and that will allow you to use the trackball. Anyways, I'm going to go into light paths and turn up the volume bounces. That will just make it so that the light is calculated on the inside of the explosion as well as on the outside. Then add sky texture to the background so our lighting isn't as bland, and I will also turn up the sun lamp. We'll try 5. Okay, 10. Okay, 10 looks good. And then switch back to the node editor, and we are ready to work on the materials. I'm just going to adjust the view real quick. I'm not quite happy with it. Okay, that's better. So I'm going to start right off by adding in a emission shader, and just plug this directly into the bottom socket of the add shader that's already there. And you'll get this giant ugly white cube. So I'm going to duplicate the attribute node and plug the FAC. Most people plug it into the strength, but I find that just complicates things, and I'm going to plug it into the color instead so that we only have one color ramp to work with. So in this color ramp, this is where you want to paint your flame colors. So I'm going to start with really dark red and move to orange, of course, and then light, bright yellow. And then turn up the emission a little bit. And then between the density attribute and the density of the smoke, we're going to add a brightness and contrast and turn the contrast up to 0.1. And turn the density of the smoke up a little bit too. You should get this ugly orange blob. So to fix this, we are going to change the attribute for the flame to say flame instead of density. And that should paint the flame material on our flame part of our simulation. And that looks much better. So just adjust this color ramp until you get the colors you want. I'm going to add bright white just to make the explosion a little hotter looking, and then just mess around and turn up the emission strength a little bit, and that looks fine. Okay. Alright, well anyways, now we're going to go ahead and save it and do a render. Actually, I'm going to first turn the samples down to something like 16. We don't need as many samples, and then just hit render. So here's our result from that render. And when you crank up the resolution to 128 for the simulation, then you'll get this, and then 256. And it's looking pretty good. You can use it in a film. However, there are the bubbles, which look a little strange, and the way to break that up is with high resolution. This is high resolution, 256 resolution divisions, and 1 high resolution, and it looks pretty good. So just mess around with it until you get something that you like. Basically, in this scenario, it's practice and a lot of resolution, which sort of breaks up the surface and adds that real detail that you want. Then just crank up the density, and you will get this. This is the final result, which is pretty picturesque, I think. So have some fun with your explosions, and join me next time. This is Iridesium.